The ground floor and some of the upper floors would be laid out. The mixed income building would be mostly 1 and 2 bedroom units. And then the grand family units would be 2 and 3 bedroom with generous unit sizes.
Grand family entrance off of 4th Street here, and the market rate unit entrance off of K Street here.
The ground floor would be all amenity space for each of the separate components of the development. And parking and loading would come, you see those arrows along 4th Street, that would be reusing the existing curb cuts there. And we would have 1 level of underground parking to meet current zoning requirements. And then if you want to flip it over, you can just see some color coding, and obviously this will get a lot more detailed, but this is what the general floor plate looks like. So the pink is the grand family development component. Pink or orange, depending on color blindness. And then the green is the mixed income. So you can see it's a difficult site. It's a mostly single loaded corridor, but we think high visibility along 395, and we've got a great, very creative architect with Hickok Cole. They just finished the NPR building and have done a lot of buildings in the neighborhood. So, I'm happy to take any questions.
The design concept, though, just to reiterate, it appears as one building, but it's really 2 separate projects sort of fitting together on the same site.
This project is based on a project that is done in the Bronx in New York. I have looked into online that project and how it works, and actually I'm going to take a trip up to take a look at it so that I can speak with more intelligence as I support you in this venture. I think that we should let everyone know that they are asking for an $11 million amount of money from the city to support a $70 million project. So that's what they're asking us. The committee met last week and we spent a lot of time speaking on the project, and the committee agreed that the project should be put forward, and that we had no problem giving a letter of support for the $11 million.
We always have to talk about parking. So how much parking do you all have? What's your plan for that when you say 1 level?
We'll do 1 level and we'll do the minimum required by zoning. So it's 1 per 4 for the mixed income, and it would be 1 per 6 for the grand family. And as we go forward, it could end up that we do 2 floors in a smaller area of the site, just depending, because it is such an oddly shaped site. We haven't gotten that far down the road, but we would be doing the minimum required by zoning, so would not be requesting any zoning relief.
We haven't done a lot of geotechnical testing yet, so we don't know whether or not we can go down another level, but if we can, we will.
I mean, we've laid it out, assuming we can go across the whole site, but we would need to do further testing to determine that. But our intent is not to request any zoning relief for parking.
And this is more of I don't know if you can speak to this, or maybe Ms. Williams can. How do you project you're going to market the grand fam? I mean, it's a great idea, but where are you going to get these people? How are people going to know about that?
So the model that we're following, as Marge mentioned, is a project that we've seen in the Bronx. Those of you who have some interest in it, it's on a website. It was done by a nonprofit called Presbyterian Housing. You might want to go on their website. We actually looked at it. The late Bishop Williams had this idea about intergenerational housing. We looked for a good model. We actually saw it on 60 Minutes. And some of you others may have seen a project like this on 60 Minutes a couple of years ago. And we called them up. Actually, it turned out, you may know that Michael Kelly, who's back here now, was running the New York City Housing Authority at the time. We got his permission to go up and visit. And they fit in closely with the Housing Authority in that area. They basically advertised in Housing Authority buildings for people that had this problem. Another reason that we looked at doing this is that every time we did a senior building for housing authorities in Baltimore and Washington and other places, what we kept finding is that there are a lot of people who are raising kids. There are a lot of seniors who are raising kids in 1-bedroom or efficiency apartments in senior buildings, and getting on the nerves of their neighbors oftentimes. And so we had basically begun to create children's rooms on the first floor of some of these buildings so that people would have an opportunity to have the kids play in an area where they're not on the floor running up and down the hallways. Out of that kind of derived a search of the data. We found that there's about 15% of children in the District of Columbia being raised by other than their parents. We looked further and we found out that there's a whole bunch of people not reporting this information. And so going back to the model in New York, their model basically is that they work with the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority does pre-screening, does advertising to get grandparents out of other buildings that are less suited for this and put them in an environment that is specifically designed for the purpose of raising grandparents, older grandparents, not the younger grandparents, older grandparents raising children. We provide them, our intent here, again, following the New York model, is provide social workers for both the grandparents, social workers for the kids, social workers for the teenagers, because they all have different types of situations and are designed the building around being able to deliver those kinds of services. Again, the idea is to create a family where we're basically raising people within the family, and to work very closely with the Housing Authority basically to move people in and move people out, because there's a point at which the kids are grown and you want to basically move the grandparents back into an environment where they're not necessarily raising the kids. One last thing.
Pause you for that. Have you know, I mean, from the other project, do you know if there's any resistance? Like, okay, the child is now 18, there they go, and then you have the senior grandma. I mean, is there any resistance? Like, I'm not going, or?
It's understood on day one. It's part of the concept, and essentially, they're then moved into a senior building.
And we have exactly the same situation where Golden Rule Plaza is across 395, so.
We have a senior building.
You know, the idea is that they have a year to transition out of the unit, and we would hope that within that year, if they qualify, which we assume they would, we could move them over to Golden Rule Plaza.
Any other questions?
We've got the benefit, two things I'd like to just mention. We've got the benefit of the experience that they've had in the Bronx, but also there've been several other projects like this set up, one in Cambridge, Massachusetts, one in Boston, one in St. Louis, that we've also begun to look at in terms of models. Because I think the important thing that you've got to find out about something like this is what things did you do that you wouldn't do again? What things did you do that were hits right off the bat? The other thing is that Bible Way Church, the sponsor, while in the business of not losing money on these projects, is not in the business of making money on the projects. We are fee developers for them. So we're not looking to make money on the project. The idea would be that we would take profits earned by the mixed income building and use those profits to support the services that need to be provided in the grand family. So the idea is essentially that it supports itself in a way that, where we don't have to be begging for grants. We don't have to be running around with our hat in our hand asking people for money. We can basically use profits to support the services. That's the intent of doing the other building also.
Okay, great.
Well, you got grandparents, you say you use the number 62 years old.
Yes,
All right, what about the 61, 60, 59?
they don't qualify. They don't qualify for this project. Now, we may look at other ways to do it, but that's not here. That's not what this is designed for.
What happens when those seniors don't have a place to go at Golden Rule across the highway?
We'll find a place for them.
Any other-
Between us and the Housing Authority, we will find a place for them. That's the idea. I've got to tell you that we're still having some discussions, back to your question. We're still having discussions with Ms. Todman at the Housing Authority, who is, looking at what their rules would be, and we're still discussing that. So, it might be 59, it might be 55, and it might be the kids stay to 21. The New York model was 18. We've got, again, we're still looking at the way, or it might be that like health insurance, kids can stay as long as they're in college or something. Then there's rules still to be designed, and I think we're looking for input on this. But the New York model was 18 and then a year's transition. And then the grandparents essentially are transitioned back into a senior building so that they can live out their days.
What about Soundbury? You talking about 295, traffic all night long. Got senior citizens 62 years old.
Yeah.
I'm getting complaints in the area anyway about the seniors in Golden Rule now about the sound, for the noise from 95, 62, and you got people 40 or something, complaining about it. I know it's 62.
Yeah, we haven't had those kind of complaints from Golden Rule Plaza. It's a fairly quiet building.
Traffic not quiet.
Well, I mean, people who live in the building basically we don't hear that they hear those kinds of noises, so.
Yeah, and that building
Yeah, we'd
was
be
also
happy
built
to.
in 2003, and we have, higher end windows and technology available to us. We'll be
Yeah, I think
doing
we
sound
can-
testing.
We can build a pretty soundproof building.
Yeah.
I hear you, but I think that's one of the challenges of the technology that's got to be involved here.
Okay, any other questions from the commissioners?
I just have one, I don't remember if we discussed it at the committee the other night. If in fact the senior passes on, what happens to the child?
In the case in the Bronx, they had an exception to allow another relation, so an aunt or an uncle or another grandparent to move in.
To step in.
And otherwise, we would work with the city to help relocate the child to the most appropriate family member. There is a DC Grandparent Caregivers Program that's actually a TANF program that's run, and it's a pilot program here, so they have a lot of contact with grandparents raising grandchildren, and we'll be working with them as well.
And I just want to, the other point, DC Housing is going to do the first screening for this grandparent unit.
Correct.
And then after that, those people who remain in the pool will then go through Bible Way or Golden Rule or whoever.
We do our normal screening.
Your regular screening or
Yes.
your exact qualifications for getting into this program. So they have to actually go through a process before they are given keys to the kingdom.
Correct. Well, and one of the other screenings is that they have to have legal custody
Yeah,
of their
okay.
grandchild. It can't be just I'm taking care of my grandchild.
Okay, questions from the audience?
First, to be commended for what you're doing, it's a great concept and a great thing. But I'm curious about the affordable housing. How are you going to come up with that figure to qualify the people to actually live there? Because that's a big issue right now in the district, and zoning has a big part to do it. How are you going to define affordable housing?
So it'll be a low-income housing tax credit project. So we'll have a private investor that'll be bringing equity to the project. And under those guidelines, it's 60% of area median income. So that would be probably where we would set the rent limits. So it would be generally around $1,100 for a one-bedroom. And it's adjusted for family size. I think you're referring specifically to the zoning set-asides for inclusionary zoning. As a tax credit project, we're actually exempt from that because we have a 40-year covenant with the city to maintain these as affordable units. So we'll be defining affordability for the mixed income probably at 60% of area median income. And then the grand families will probably be lower income, probably less than 30% AMI, because many of those are just living off of Social Security or pensions.
Then remember, 25% of the units are market rate, meaning, and our market rate units will still be less than the market. Will be around $1,700, $1,800 a month for one bedroom unit.
Yeah, Mary?
Oh, I just wanted to say, I think it's absolutely wonderful. Absolutely.
Harold?
Yes, what agency would provide the social support services?
They'd actually be hired by our property management staff at the building. So they would be on staff and be part of the operations of the building.
The agency itself would be on site?
We would have social service workers, so we would have workers with social service backgrounds providing resident services. We would then also work with outside organizations to link our residents with outside services that they need, which we already do at most of our buildings at Golden Rule Plaza and Golden Rule Apartments in Severna.
You mentioned foster grandparents, and that's sponsored by UPO. This is where I'm asking the question. Would it be UPO, or would it be the city, or whomever?
So we'll do our own. We will not hire an agency to do the service. We will put together our own team to do the service.
Okay, Martin?
Yeah, I also agree it's a great idea, especially since Councilmember Wells agrees that we're losing a lot of lower income people in the city by droves. So it's a great concept. But when you say grandparents taking care of grandchildren, I'm looking at the gap there, and you're looking at parents who have abandoned their children who are incarcerated. We've got a lot of kids running around the city having problems, we're surrounded by social services that are failing. So the key issue here is how effective and the social services you're going to use have a proven track record of helping these children and not having them going straight to the prison system.
We absolutely agree, and we think that's the purpose of what we're doing here.
One of the reasons we really like this location is it's an amenity-rich area, both for seniors and for children. With the redevelopment of the Walker Jones and Dunbar High Schools, there's a lot going on there. And so we want to take advantage of that, but one of the things that resonated with us when we were in the Bronx was that all the children there call all the grandmas grandma. So the size is an important thing because it really becomes a community. We think over 50 units, it becomes more personal. So,
Go ahead.
I wanted to ask if you have any open space. It's supposed to be for seniors and children, but where do they have recreation?
Yeah.
we do have some open space
So, yeah.
right here. And we will meet the new green area ratio. That's a requirement of zoning. So we'll have outdoor space. We're going to have a lot of outdoor roof terraces if we
Yeah.
have the,
Elizabeth and I are still discussing this with the architects, but the idea also is to have some green roof space, some courtyards on the rooftops of the buildings.
and as you know, Walker Jones has a recreation center and a playground just around the corner. So we'd hope to take advantage of those investments as well.
Okay, any other questions about that? Go ahead.
You said you have a 4-year covenant with the city. What happens when this covenant expires in 4 years out of?
40. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but I'm not going to be here in 40 years.
Yeah.
So I will leave that to whoever's here at the time.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have one.
Alvin?
Metro for transportation for seniors, they like catching the bus a lot.
Yeah.
You got like K Street and those areas, all bus route.
Yeah.
Y'all take that up.
Well, I think the new streetcar is going to be on K Street. There's a circulator bus and there's a regular bus that are already in place. And it's not that far a walk to Convention Center for Metro or to Gallery Place. Get a bus to Gallery Place from Metro.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, Marge, you want to go ahead and make a motion?
Yeah. I make a motion that we support this project and send a letter of support to Michael Kelly, asking that the funds that are being requested, $11 million, be considered for the project.
Okay. Do I have a second? Alex seconds. All in favor? Aye. Okay, all aye. Alvin? Okay, all ayes.
Thank you very much.
6-0, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, we appreciate it. Okay, next we go to Alex's area, and this is very exciting. Well, it's going to be about a new temporary ice skating rink. Very exciting.
So folks are familiar where Old City Farm and Guild for the past year has been an outdoor garden center. They're going to continue there for another year or so while the planning for the construction of the new Shaw Middle School moves forward. But in the meantime, there's an opportunity to have a community amenity that has not been present in the neighborhood before, and that's an ice skating rink. So Lee Granados will fill us in on this project.
Can everybody hear me? I feel like I have a pretty loud voice. Okay. Let me start by saying this is something that I started exploring at the end of September, and it has moved very, very quickly, and I have no idea how quickly and how excited people would get. But the first step was to actually work with Frank Asher, who has been a friend of mine for about 6 or 7 years. I've worked on multiple projects with him and helped him build his business. He's been a partner with me in my children's first school at Ross Elementary in DuPont, and has now partnered with me in Foggy Bottom at a second school. He's very invested in the community and very invested in his landscaping and gardening. So when I discovered this fall that he was doing a urban gardening sustainability program with Seton Elementary, I went over and said, how do I bring this to another school? And we talked a lot about the program, and then looking at his space, I started asking, what kind of events do you do? How do you do them? And how could we bring the community together into something more than just bars and restaurants. There's plenty of that, but for people like me with kids and my friends with kids, there's not a lot else to do. So we started talking to Alex and going to department heads throughout the city and Councilmember Wells and Councilmember Evans' office, and started just asking, is this feasible? Would you support us if we've got the funding? And here's what we want to do. So basically, yes, I say that the ice rink is the cake, the icing on the cake. The bigger purpose of the project is to actually allow every DCPS student to learn about urban gardening, sustainability, the Winter Olympics, math skills and financial literacy through content area learning with their teachers. And then to come to the site and present and tell us what they've learned and go through various stations on the farm and learn about composting and recycling and winter gardening, and then to allow them an opportunity to ice skate for free. You know, we hope that the educational piece will transcend over to the public, and when the public comes just to skate for fun, there will be ways for them to see the impact that we're actually having on the youth. So we brought a company up from Florida to look at the site. We had another group come in yesterday that seemed less costly. This is not a venture to make money. This is kind of my thing as a second generation native to give back to the city and do something for education as a former teacher. So what the commissioners have is a diagram of what the ice rink would look like over top of the sunken amphitheater. The group that came to us yesterday actually had a better idea to level sand and put the rink over top. The goal would be to open it on the Olympics and close it down on the Olympics, potentially go a little bit, if the weather's cold, into mid-March. Thinking long-term, I would love to continue making this a field trip space free to DCPS students to come and learn this. The field trips would change seasonally according to what's being grown and what they can learn. And then what is the ice rink can be taken away, put away. It could be turned into a street hockey facility or whatever you want it to be. I don't think a lot of people realize that Fort DuPont Ice and DC Ice has one of the best African American youth hockey teams in the US. And when I tell people that, they go, "What are you talking about?" And that's just an amazing program that I would love to expand over into this area as well and partner with them. We are talking to people like the Caps. We are talking to sponsors that are coming to us just word of mouth saying, we want to be part of this and we want to give back to the community. I would love to go so far to work with the churches and local organizations and say, look, if you have a parking lot that's completely open on Monday through Friday and you want to make money, offer your parking and keep it. This is not about us making anything for ourselves. It's really about making a really cool concept in an up and coming area. And from my standpoint as a mother, I'd really like to be able to stay in the city and not have to drive to Virginia multiple times a week. So.
I have a question, just to clarify, when did you say you wanted to open up? Is this not correct in here, in December 6th?
We would like to do it December 6th, yes.
So you would like to, but might not, okay.
It is feasible. So here's a contingency with DGS right now, is I have to prove 100% financial backing. They're willing to support me based on that contingency, which I totally understand. I don't want to see the city get stuck with the bill, neither do they. There's liability that we would have to buy so that the city is not in charge of it. There's construction fees and permitting fees, and that adds up. So they've asked for me to provide financial backing, which is something we're working on, and it actually takes less than a week for the company to pop it up.
So let me just ask you, this as just a regular consumer going over the ice skate, how much is it going to cost for me and for shoe rental and all that?
We are keeping it pretty much at our cost. We've looked at, let's see, Washington Harbor Canal, and they're all between, I think, 12, maybe 10 and $15. We're actually looking at packages for families that would be like a family of 4 would be $12. You know, somebody coming, a young professional off the street, you're 7 or 8. We're banking on, you know, sponsors and special events really paying for the operations until it's gone.
Any questions from the commissioners?
I have a couple. Has this been approved by DCPS since you're having it on their property?
We are conversing with the Chancellor and DCPS and DGS and DCRA because they actually overlap. So yes, I have compiled several letters of support.
But they haven't said absolutely, we could support this 100%.
The Chief Deputy of Schools is completely behind me and says DGS, and the Chancellor just did her standing ovation, so I wasn't about to push her until tomorrow, but she knows about it, and I have no doubt, I've done a lot with DCPS, that she would back this project.
What kind of funding where are you going for your funding? And what kind of amounts of dollars are you looking for?
So to run this project is $150,000. So you're looking at, there's small sponsors that have come to us, but in the past week, I've actually gone to private investors and said, look, I really want to do this. It's not going to be a moneymaker for you, but if you want to fund it 100%, I'm willing to give you that 15%. You know, you're like a small bank to me. Within 5 months, I will guarantee you'll get your money back. And that's on me and my business partner and her company to protect the city and to protect Mr. Asher.
Is there a way, first of all, this organization does issue grants, so you might want to consider putting in a grant application to this ANC. Also, I think businesses in our area would be likely to support something like this if in fact there was a very reduced rate for people who live in the Shaw neighborhood or who live in this ANC area, so that you may end up very lucky with being able to financially support based on the fact that you will offer something special for the people who live here.
One of the concepts is actually if you are a government employee of the city or the federal government, that we would knock off $1 or $2 and it would go straight into a foundation like Frank's Guild that goes directly back into the school programming for urban gardening and sustainability. I'm more than happy to apply that to Shaw residents as well, or all the ANC residents.
Any other questions from the commissioners? Any questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Martin?
What about after-school youth programs in the neighborhood?
So that's actually a really exciting thing that I'm looking into and want to offer. I want to work with DPR, the YMCA, all the after-school programs, and school days off, have the opportunity to work with programs and say, okay, you can bring the kids over, for 2-hour blocks, so they're outside, they're being physically fit and active. If they're DCPS students, again, I'm probably going to push and find a way that it would be free to those kids. There's private organizations like DCJCC who are charging a lot of money, for their program and kids to come there for a day. I would probably end up charging them to bring their kids, but also looking at DCPS this year has 2 weeks off at the Christmas break. So we'd like to look at opportunities as well and getting kids out there, active, making it part of their learning and experience in the urban environment.
Okay, if Martin has an.
Yeah, thanks. You mentioned DCPS students and, DC public charter schools or public schools serve district residents. Are you excluding them or are you just kind of?
I would be open to it, but I would also ask, I know they have a lot of private funding. I was in 18 years in public education, so I'm willing to work with some, but knowing what I know about others, I would ask them to supplement some of that money Same way I would ask probably to supplement a wealthy Northwest DCPS school to say, you know, you could probably kick in a little donation or something, or there's creative, flexible ways that I'm completely open to. But I think in this area, in particular, there are some schools that are really struggling, like Seton, that shouldn't have to be paying to come over and use that facility. I can afford to take my kid across to Virginia and put him in hockey. Not everybody can, so yes.
Right, so you are excluding public charter school students?
No, no, I didn't say that. No.
So unless they pay up or any up,
No, I said I am willing to work with those groups.
you're excluded. But, okay, fine. Did you consider any other sites in the neighborhood? I think it also has a dynamic space over there, you know, with the dog park and everything. It's great that you can fit in an ice skating. It's fantastic that the city supports that. And Alex and the other commissioners are addressing this. But we have a huge parking spot on the third block of P Street that's supposed to be used for recreational space. Our own commissioner has never addressed to include recreation space for local neighbors. We can't even get the water turned on for the dog users and the athletic people who use the site. And you can get an ice skating rink. It seems, you know, a little imbalanced. That
I'm willing to help with any of those issues. My real job in real life is to be a liaison and work with city officials and city organizations and ANCs like this, and I work in all 8 wards. And I pride myself on taking that issue and finding out why it hasn't been addressed. I went to that site in particular because Frank already had a special events license, so it eliminates a lot of issues already. It's metro accessible. You know, I would love to take advantage. I think one of the bigger issues that has come to my attention, and I've added a component to it, is since Frank has been in that space, there's been crime reduction, and the homeless issue has been addressed a little bit better. And I don't know if you realize, but after December 25th, Frank actually leaves for about 2 months. And so that space would actually not be occupied, which then you kind of risk a lot of those issues coming up. Not only would we be that presence, but I've actually put into the